Top 5 observations of Michigan's defense to the Big Ten. Or response, whatever you want to say. Number 5. This was all on Conor Stallions. This was just a guy, a rogue operator.
Who had a Michigan hat on.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan clothing.
That we
Western
paid.
Michigan clothing.
This is all on him. And whatever he did, I mean, if he's just a low-level staffer, it couldn't have affected the game all that much. The assumption that it would is nonsense.
Oh, okay. This is BS because coaches are as paranoid as anybody walking the earth. They would know who he is and what he does.
Yeah, I mean, the low level. He's just a guy. He's an analyst.
Making $40,000-$50,000 a year with a $15,000 travel budget, but he's just a guy.
Yeah. So this is
the
where
best 30. What is it called? 30 for 30.
Yeah. They're walking out on a limb here with this statement. Now, the rest of what they said holds a lot of water. This part right here, they should have just kind of left out because it sounds to me like you're daring. Like, look, prove it was anybody other than Conor Stallions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Prove it.
You're talking about the 10-page letter.
Yeah.
That they sent back to the conference.
Yeah. Like, this is the part where I'm like, you can say, like, as of now, then it's true. The evidence shows that this was Conor Stallions and the other coaches didn't know about it. Then I would stop at that. But, like, saying, like, calling him a low-level staffer that, like, not there. Guys, there's pictures of him next to the coaches during the game, whispering in their ears, and the coaches reacting to what he told them.
All right, Garrett, wide shot with folders like this, right?
Yeah.
In his arm, like this.
Yeah. So he didn't just notice something, run up and tell them. He was looking and saw something.
And these are it's post-game meals is what they
yeah,
have.
That's he's recruiting analyst. That's what he was doing. Number 4. Be careful what you really want to investigate. Now, this is a very Michigan, Ohio State, Texas all can kind of get away with these kind of like saying these things because basically they're saying like, look, if you ask for an investigation to us, fine. But we are going to ask for an investigation into everybody else. And then you're going to see what this really is, and we're going to force you to define what in-person scouting is.
These schools, those schools you mentioned, and we're bringing those others into play, but they dictate what's going to happen.
They're big players.
You're talking about mega powers, and it's very rarely do they ever get put in the crosshairs and get shot.
Here's part of the issue that Michigan has in that they've never really been popped hard. And so the fact that Jim Harbaugh's even getting investigated and you've got Matt Weiss and the computer access, like all this stuff coming down on them at once, there's an air about them that like, why, how dare you?
Yeah.
Investigate us.
Do you not realize what's that when you see Hollywood stars?
Do you know who I am?
Do you not realize who I am? Yeah.
And so that's part of it with Michigan because they've done that. If you're a Big Ten fan, you go back in their history. They've done it like every time somebody's brought something up, they are very fast to point out who else is cheating. And and Paxton, calm down. I'm not even looking at the chat room. I'll use the example of Texas in the Southwest Conference. Texas, while I'm sure they were doing everything that everybody else was doing in the Southwest Conference.
Oh,
probably better because they didn't get caught.
But
what I do know about Texas is that whenever somebody's about to get in trouble, Texas, like, oh, the fire's burning. You guys, like, you don't have a big enough fire. Here's some gasoline. We're going to pour it on there. That's what they do. Michigan's very similar of when anybody else is in trouble. Like, you don't think that when the Jim Tressel thing was going on, that Michigan people were out there like, free tattoos? Oh, my God.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Perish the thought.
Yeah, wait a minute.
How could you?
We will circle our wagons, but you don't want us sending out our troops into your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah.
And I mean, while there is, like, part of that is bravado and bluster and what Michigan does, part of it's also true. Like, sometimes, they're telling the Big Ten, don't ask questions you don't really want the answer to if you're not ready to do something about it.
Yeah.
Number 3, they don't have concrete evidence. This is weird. Yes, there is maybe a reasonable legal assumption that you could say, all right, Conor Stallions is here. He's in-person scouting, but nobody told him to do it. He was doing it on his own. All of that. These people are just taking, we don't know what they're taking pictures of. You just have a video of him pointing at the sideline. He could have been looking at the band or something like that. Those are things they could do, but you also need to be reasonable here in that, yes, you don't have a hardcore smoking gun, but you do have a lot of, and this isn't a criminal trial either, you do have a lot of evidence that kind of points to the fact that something was...
Can they subpoena his phone?
I really can't subpoena anything. They don't have subpoena power.
That's what I'm saying. So you can't go get... Yeah.
Now, you can, if it's a state-issued phone, you can do a freedom of information request.
Yeah, I was wondering,
and you can do that. But those are the things that you have to kind of do. And the other point that you could make, and I think the Big Ten is going to make is, and the NCAA is, look, it doesn't matter if you guys knew about it or not. The point is that he was there in-person scouting, especially that Central Michigan thing is going to be very damning when they, when that all gets ironed out, which everybody knows what's going on. But he was there in-person scouting. You are getting in trouble for that because that's against the rules. So that's the simplest part of it. Number 2, there's no precedent. There's nothing that they've ever done. There's nothing in the rule book. There's nothing for this. So anything that the Big Ten would do, and not before the NCAA finishes any kind of investigation sometime, at the turn of the next century, there's nothing in the book that says this. That it's Pierre and I were talking about it on the show earlier. I said this appears to be like an IKEA shelf where there's a key part of information, like, hey, now you're at section 3, the legs, and it just kind of just shows you a picture of what you're supposed to do and doesn't describe how it's going to go. And there's just the sportsmanship clause.
Right.
There's no specifics, which makes it hard for them to say, well, here's what we're going to do to you, Michigan. We're going to suspend Coach Harbaugh. Well, doesn't say you can do that in the rule.
Right.
So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And number 1, Tony Pettiti does not have the power to punish them because of this. Because there's no precedent, he's not the one who can go in and do it. It's the NCAA, and they're saying just leave it to them, which ultimately feels to me like what Tony Pettiti is going to have to do. And the other coaches are just going to have to stew, which sucks for them, but,
Here's what I think the Big Ten may have done wrong. The SEC would have had Michigan's back. Even if the other teams in the conference, for example, the Cam Newton, Auburn deal.
I don't know if it was reported in the conference before it got to the NCAA.
Yeah,
it would have been handled in the conference. If
they
couldn't,
I still think, again, are you going to discipline a team in your conference that's about to make you even more money?
Well,
I'm not saying that Ohio State won't make you more money or Penn State, but you're about to take somebody out of the equation because if you take Michigan out, they're not going to. They're not going to forfeit games. They're not going to suspend anybody. They might fine Michigan. Maybe they'll try to do that with Harbaugh and lose, but they're not going to take them out of the equation where they have a chance to have 2 of the 4 teams in the national championship semifinals. That is the best interest of the conference. Just take it, bite, and move on.
Yeah, I think.
No matter if you piss off everybody else.
Look, if they... All Tony Pettiti has to do, though, a lot of times is just make a show of it. As long as he made a show of it, and
I think it's too late for them to make a show of it.
Well, that's what he's trying to do.
What are they going to do?
Well, making a show of it.
Fine them $500,000.
Making a show of it is saying he's going to try to punish them, and then he's going to be able to say, look, this is going to get tied up in court anyway. We've just got to let it ride out because what the coaches want in the Big Ten is they want blood now, but the timetable does not lend itself to that. So he has to tell them, hey, listen, I can't give you anything right now.
Yep.
Because it's
based
November.
On bylaws, based on the rule of the conference, there's nothing we can do.
And based on the fact that even if I try to do something and said, well, I do have this in the power, and the other members support me in this, they're still going to take us to court, and I don't know what court in America you can get in for this in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because Michigan,